listening to the 10 Questions with the Musical Mind podcast with your host, Peter Harris.
Hey everybody, welcome back to 10 Questions with the Musical Mind. I am Peter Harris, your host. This week we welcome guitarist, singer, songwriter, composer Tara Lynch. Tara, of course, has released her album Evil Enough quite some time ago, and it's a great album, but she's just recently wrapped up her European leg of her tour for the album. Now that she's back stateside, she joins us. We discuss, a little bit about how the tour went and just touching back on some of the creation of the album, her songwriting, how she went about getting all the guests that show up on the album, on one page and that kind of thing, and how she comes with melodies, how she writes her songs, what the seed for the process is, and get a lot of interesting insight from her on these topics. So I hope you'll enjoy this conversation, and if you haven't yet, be sure to check out her album, Evil Enough. Hello, Tara. How are you?
Hey, good. How you doing?
I am doing well, doing so well. Thanks again for joining us. You've had a big year going on, a lot of stuff, and so you've wrapped up your tour with UFO, right? You guys were over in Europe, right?
Yeah. We did the UK and Ireland, and that tour was March through April.
I mean, I've seen the photos. It looked like you guys had a blast, and the shows were a success. Was there any kind of adjustments to playing in Europe? I just mean everything from like differences in the venues, the power sources, playing havoc with amps. I mean, anything random like that?
I mean, not really. They're just so well equipped to, at all the venues, to take anything from anywhere. I mean, obviously, my crew knew to swap out whatever, power cables and convert whatever they had to convert. So, like I tour with a Fractal, for example, and that's got a US cable source for it, but obviously they knew to convert that, so it wasn't any issue at all.
Okay, and you got some pros touring with you too. I'm sure they know the ropes, Bjorn and those guys.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now I want to cover your backstory a little bit. I mean, you're such a fantastic guitar player. I mean, when did you start? Did you start singing around the same time, or did they co-develop, or what was the story there?
It's funny. I sort of singing is something I always did. I think I was born singing, but and I was in the chorus when I was in school, when I was a schoolgirl, and stuff like that. I've always been into music. I can't remember a day in my life where I wasn't. So it's always been at the forefront of my life, really. I wanted to pick up a guitar, for years, but while I was little, but my older brother wouldn't have it. So I waited until I got the nerve to play his guitar when he left the house for the day. And that was at 11. So I started playing at 11, and obviously he came home, caught me freaked out because I was so good and wondered how the hell I learned how to do that, and then just gave me the guitar and got himself a new one. So
that's cool.
I never stopped playing since.
Gotcha. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, but I didn't decide to do it professionally, obviously, until much later on in life. And that was a very calculated decision.
I was going to say, you definitely went into it. It seemed like it was just all of a sudden just a very, it was a polished product. You seemed to have your ducks in a row. So I was impressed. It's like you just sort of sprung from the womb fully formed. And now, what's been the evolution of your gear? I see you playing Music Man guitars. And
I've been playing Ernie Ball guitars for years. I love them, and very proudly endorsed by them at this point, and which is great. And maybe one day they'll make a signature model, I hope.
Gosh, you'd be in good company.
That's in the future.
Yeah, that's very cool. I would like to see that. Now, what kind of things would you want to specify your own kind of pickups if that were to ever be the case, or anything, or any kind of?
Oh yeah. Because I take what they have off the shelf and then I modify the heck out of it. So
gotcha.
Obviously, if they did make a signature model for me, they would have to modify it the way I do, and I'd probably make a couple of other changes as well that I haven't even done to mine, but aesthetically only. But as far as in terms of the functionality of the instrument, they're phenomenal right off the shelf. I got to say, really, all I do is change. I do change the pickups because we're all very particular about what we want to use and
Sure.
the sound we want to have. And, the pickups that it comes with, the standard pickups, don't have the sound that I prefer. So I do change those. And that also means that I have to route out the seat for the pickups because the depth isn't great enough. So, I definitely have to modify the heck out of the thing to create the sound that is mine.
Right. Okay. Now, what did you start off?
Yeah.
What was your first quote unquote professional guitar that you had?
The first professional guitar?
I mean, did you have like junk guitars at various stages, then finally got like a first good guitar? Like I had some just awful.
Okay. So I will say that I pretty much, gosh, calling something junk is really very, very opinionated because at this point, I've got over 80 guitars, and some of them would be classified as possible junk, and then some of them are, museum worthy. So
Sure.
It really depends on your opinion. But what I will say is this. I would say my first really good guitar that I would consider a really good piece came around when I graduated high school, and I got a Gibson, and it was fantastic. But prior to that, I had just really cheap beat up things and knockoffs, and I couldn't afford anything better.
Sure.
So
yeah. No.
It wasn't until my high school graduation, that I got the gift of a decent guitar to use.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes cheap guitars can be good though. And when I say junk, I mean my first guitar I bought myself as a teenager, and it was, I don't remember the brand, but I finally took it apart one time to it did teach me how the workings, how to change the springs out and the trims and all that. But it was literally, once I got it down, it was laminated. It was plywood laminated together, like sheets of plywood.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a piece of
God.
wood. Yeah, that's what I mean. When I say junk, I mean that. Like the action's like a 6 inches off the fretboard.
Then I don't think I ever had.
Okay.
I don't think I ever had junk.
Right. But yeah, it really just depends. I had a Gibson Les Paul that I loved for years, and at some point I bought an Ibanez at a pawn shop for $250. And I don't think I hardly ever played the Les Paul again because I just preferred the way the pickup sounded on that Ibanez so much more. So it's really just a matter of personal preference.
Well, you probably are you more of a blues player or more of the shred variety?
Well, I'm not of the shred. I like shred music, but I specialize in the key of off. Yeah, I'm just. I don't. I'm not. I'm a hobbyist. Is the best way to put me.
Okay.
But
well, I mean, when you hear that from people that they throw down a Les Paul to play an Ibanez, it's usually because they want more glide. It's usually not the pickups; it's the neck.
Oh yeah, the Les Paul was a wonderful guitar. I did kind of want to, like, I always want a vibrato bar, but I don't often use it. If that makes sense, but
well, I have several Les Pauls too. I mean, I have Strats, I have Les Pauls, I've got pretty much every brand you can name. It's just that the Ernie Ball Music Man Silhouette Special, which is the one that I prefer the most, is ergonomically the most correct guitar for me ever, and the sound can't be beat for me and my preference, and the feel of the neck, the weight of the guitar, standing with it. I could never stand up with a Les Paul for more than 5 minutes. I would drop dead.
Yeah, they are heavy.
They're so heavy.
Yeah. Now, when you were recording,
they're so heavy.
They are. It's like just like a anvil with strings. When you were recording Evil Enough, how did you physically go about that? Was that in a recording studio, or you done a lot of it direct to computer? And you had so many amazing guests on the album.
Was all in the recording studio.
Okay.
All in the recording studio. Yeah.
So now all these guests on the albums, they joined you in the studio, or did they?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
See,
Absolutely.
I'm surprised. I thought, a lot of people have just throwing out the names like Tony McAlpine or whatever, lay down his part remotely and put it in, but you had everybody. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, everybody came into the studio and sat with me, and we all worked together. It's not one of those phone it in deals. No.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's really impressive.
I mean, that's the thing. For me, I have a unique situation because, I've had the skills to do this forever. It's just that I just decided to, and I have personal friends that happen to be professional in the music business, and so it was just a matter of me calling my friends and saying, "Hey, you want to hang out? Let's talk. I decided I'm gonna finally do this."
Very cool.
I always intended to do this. It just wasn't the time until,
Sure.
until I did it. So when I decided to do it, they were like, heck yeah. So I spoke to them all individually, saw them all personally and everything. And then, that was it. It was just a matter of scheduling everybody's. That's why it took so long too. In between their tours and everything to get them in, because I don't want to phone anything in. I need to, be present and make sure that, this is the music I wrote. They have to obviously play what I wrote with their own style. Obviously, sure. That's why they're there. No, I could never just phone it in.
Gotcha.
Or, have it phoned in or whatever. No.
I'm trying to get a handle on how you write. Like on a song like Cringeworthy, I could see maybe how the melody may have come first. I mean, how do you tend to write a song? Do you come up with a riff? Do you come up with a chord progression or a melody or?
Yeah, that was, it's funny, actually. I'd like to really credit my producer, Brent Woods, for that song even happening, because, we were deep into the record, and he says, Tara, you don't have like a slow ballady kind of song on this album at all whatsoever. And I really think that you should consider writing a song like that, that's like a slow ballad, something with maybe acoustic guitar or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because if you think about it, everything on the record is very electric. It's not like, I'm not strumming an acoustic much on that record except for Cringeworthy. So, right. And there's a piece in Guitar Arises that's acoustic as well, but that's it. And so I said, okay. So I went home and I picked up, one of my acoustics, and I just started writing a melody. Then I wrote the song.
Okay.
And I brought it back. I wrote the song, and when I write, I record directly into my Logic system and create a full demo because I play all the instruments.
Okay.
So I start with the guitar. I wrote the melody. Then I decided, okay, how fast or slow do I want it? Played a little drum beat. Okay, recorded the drums, recorded the guitars, recorded a bass line, wrote the lyrics, recorded a vocal, and brought it in. I said, okay, here you go. Here's your slow song. And of course, he went, holy shit.
Yeah. I wasn't meaning overnight. Yeah. And that's great when a song can just come together like that. That's fantastic.
Well, absolutely. But then, to his credit, okay, so there's a term that I use called a left turn. Every one of my songs has a left turn where I either change key or pace or something. There's some kind of breakdown in it. And so this didn't have a very vivid one for him. So again, as a producer, he goes, where's your left turn in this one though?
Very cool. Yeah.
I go, oh, you're right. So I go, all right, I'll come back tomorrow. Again, I go home, and then I write that whole jam piece with the solo in it.
Okay, gotcha.
Where it speeds up.
Right. Yeah, and I guess...
And again, I demo it right into the system, record it, throw it right in there, and bring him back the demo with that piece in it now. And he's like, okay, now we record.
Right. Very cool. And that's what a good producer should be able to do, is just sort of...
Oh, he's the best.
Yeah.
He's the best.
Just maybe nudge the artist in the right direction, or just point out things that sort of spur the creativity.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. Those are great suggestions. I mean, I'm smart enough to take very good suggestions,
Right. I've got a random opinion that's not based on any fact, but I've always kind of viewed any guitar player. I think one thing that's unique about them, everybody has their unique styles, and you get to where you can recognize everybody, but I think a player's vibrato is almost like their voice, in that it almost doesn't matter how good or limited a player's technique is, they always seem to have their own distinct vibrato. And I think it's almost like the human voice. It's like you can't mimic it, you can't really change it, you can change the way you apply it, but I mean, do you notice that in players where it's almost, because I can always tell, I can tell Yngwie's vibrato, I can tell Steve Morse's vibrato, et cetera, et cetera. But I tend to think it's a really unique thing that you almost can't. There's people who are really good at copying other players, but I don't think they can ever get that part right.
Absolutely. A player's vibrato is, in my opinion, their signature. I mean, because there are no two alike.
Right.
And it is very personal, and it's not something you can contrive or decide to have. It's whatever comes naturally. That's why when people are like, what gear do you use? I want to have your sound. I'm like, good luck.
Right.
Because you could pick up Eddie Van Halen's rig and you can play it, but it'll never sound like Eddie Van Halen's playing.
Right.
You could pick up my rig and play it, but it's never going to sound like I'm playing.
Right. That's the thing is I don't think it's almost an unteachable thing. Yeah.
The sound comes from the hands. And so everyone's is unique, and it's very much an opinion-based thing as, in terms of who has, a great vibrato, who doesn't, and so on and so on. I hear names tossed around. My favorite vibrato in the business would belong to Gary Moore, the late great Gary Moore.
Yes.
He had a vibrato that just made me cry. I mean, it just moves me like no one else's. And there's a lot of people with great vibrato, but his was just like, so phenomenal and so personally his and so recognizable. It's not something you can't invent your vibrato. It is what it is.
Right. That I guess that's a good way of putting what I was saying. That is like the fixed element, because that's what the most uniquely expressive of the individual. No matter how advanced you get, your vibrato is still almost what you started with. Now, speaking of that, all the musicians, of course, we all admire a lot of musicians. Who's one whose tone you really admire? And I don't mean just a guitar player. I mean, you could be several. It could be a player, a drummer whose snare tone you like, or a bass player or a keyboardist. Just the sounds they get. Does anybody springs to mind?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, more people than I can mention.
Sure.
I'm going to start with Vinnie Moore.
Yeah.
His tone is outrageous, and he's one of the most consistently incredibly beautiful players. And Michael Schenker, definitely. Those are probably my favorite tones. I love Tony Iommi.
Yeah.
If we're talking about tone, a huge influence of mine, Tony Iommi, and he doesn't get enough credit in my opinion because he's not a shredder. Everybody gets hooked up on everybody just gets hooked on this shredder crap. Jesus. I'm referred to as a shredder, and it annoys the shit out of me because I'm a musician.
Right.
I make music.
Right.
I don't shred, in my opinion, at all. I mean, Jesus, listen to Yngwie. I don't sound like that. I make music.
Right.
He makes music too, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. Everybody tries to copy everybody. It drives me insane. I just do whatever comes naturally, and everybody's got their own repertoire or whatever. Uli John Roth has a phenomenal tone as well. Yes. Yeah. I mean, did I mention Steve Vai yet?
Yeah, of course.
Of
course, yeah.
There's a lot of great tone out there. I mean, that's the beauty of so you talk about vibrato and we'll talk about tone, and those two things are exactly the footprint of each guitar player. So because everybody can play the same scale, and you can play it on 15 different kinds of guitars and 15 different kinds of amps and all of this. But again, like the vibrato, one's tone comes from the fingers.
Right.
You can play the same note. I've demonstrated this to people that I've I don't want to say given a lesson to, but maybe taught something to, and I've shown them how you can play the same note 5 times, and depending on where your finger sits on that string, in that fret, depending on your pressure, depending on whatever your natural arrival to that note is going to change the tone.
No, absolutely.
So tone is not something. That's why you can go and you can buy an Eddie Van Halen pedal and get really happy that you might sound even a little bit like him because it's fat and crunchy or whatever, but it's still not going to sound like Eddie playing. So
definitely not when I'm playing. Yeah.
Tone and vibrato are both very. That's your fingerprint. That's like no one else's.
Right. Yeah, that's true. You can't play exactly get the exact same gear, and you will never sound like somebody else. No.
So I can't pick who has my favorite tone because there are so many phenomenal tones and vibratos out there. There's so many phenomenal players. They all have their own unique thing to offer. What makes one better than the other? No, they're not better. They're just either maybe they're more, maybe their songwriting is more appealing to you, but that doesn't make them better. It just it's a matter of opinion.
Exactly.
My tone is what it is and is what it will always be because it's always going to be my hands playing the instrument. My vibrato is going to be what it's always going to be because it's my hands.
Yeah, it's so. I'm glad that you made this record because what a shame it would have been to not document your songwriting. I mean, it's cool that you put that out and you have tour behind it and everything. It's really a treat to see. Now, do you have plans to do another one at some point in the future, or what's?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'm very carefully.
Mm-hmm.
I am very carefully deciding how I want to proceed in terms of where I want to continue my tour because I'll still tour off of this record probably through next year.
Gotcha.
So there are a lot of options for me, and I want to make sure that I take the path that feels right for me and in the right kinds of venues that feel right for me and with the right people. So, I'm reviewing my options and making my decisions accordingly. I'm still in total control because I haven't signed with anyone yet. And
Gotcha.
That is also, very deliberate because this dog's going to hunt no matter what. So
right. And that way you can keep complete control. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to make sure that, things go the way I would want to see them go and, or else I'm out. I'm not going to do this unless let's put it this way. I write all the music. I write all the lyrics. I play the instruments. I'm the lead singer. The band is called Tara Lynch for a reason.
Right.
And so, I'm a solo artist. It's got to be the way I envision it or else forget it.
And it's cool that I do like how you brought in Mark Bowles for, and things like that to add flavor to it. That's cool. But yeah, it's definitely, it's your band and it's cool that you're able to keep it all in control like that. I don't know if that would have been as possible in 1985. But nowadays, with the scene it seems like it's more feasible to do that. But
yeah, well, that's actually not how it happened. I was going to have guest vocalists on the vocal tracks. I wasn't going to sing on my own record.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, but again, I play all the instruments and I do complete demos. When my guests get the song to learn, when they listen to it for the first time, they're listening to a song that I've completely recorded myself and played all the instruments. Right. I've recorded all the tracks already. They get a homemade demo from me with me on every instrument, including the vocal.
Gotcha.
And I sing it the way I'm going to want to hear Mark or whomever sing it. So, I had Mark record Trustless and Evil Enough before I brought Vinny Appice in to do drums.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So when I brought Vinny in, those vocals had already been recorded and I already decided, I wrote those songs with Mark's voice in my head.
Gotcha.
I love his voice. He's a friend of mine. It was easy to call him and say, hey, do you want to do this? So, I literally wrote those songs with his voice in my head. So I had him record those too. The rest of the demos that I had Vinny playing on, Banished from My Kingdom,
right?
Antidote. He heard the demo for those, and he said, "I showed up to the studio to record his drums, and obviously the vocals get recorded last. So I show up to do his drums, and Phil, on bass, and so Phil's there, Brent is there, and Vinny is there, and I walk in, and Vinny says, 'Give me one good reason why you're not singing on your own album.'"
Right? Yeah.
And I said, and I look at Brent and I look at him and I'm like, yeah, very, very funny. Very funny. I go, Brent, did you put him up to this? He throws his arms in the air. He's like, I give up. All right, I've had it. I give up. He's been trying to tell me to sing on my own record before I even had Mark record his vocal. And I kept telling him, I don't personally, I don't think that women singing the kind of music that I write are very appealing. I don't like that. I prefer to hear a more masculine voice, a male voice in that genre of music. So that's just a personal thing for me.
Sure.
And there's a couple that pass regardless that, are great, but really it's not my thing. So I'm a woman and I don't like the way my voice sounds in that kind of music. So I was not going to touch it.
Interesting.
Well, they harped on me all day for hours about why I should sing it, about how great they think my voice is. They think I'm absolutely insane not to do it. What are you effing crazy? and then they made a lot of good sense to me. And I said, all right. Obviously you're not, I thought I was being punked. I go, obviously you're not joking, because they were just on me for hours about it. And I was like, okay. Here's what I'll do. I'll record the vocal for Banished. And if I like the way it sounds at the end of the day, then I'll go ahead and sing the rest of the record. If I don't like it, then I'm going to, either have Mark do it, or I was thinking about another person I was going to ask to also sing a track on the record. And, I liked it. And it turned out, I was like, well, that doesn't suck.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. But that's very cool. That's interesting, because what it says to me is that you had such a keen focus on making sure what was correct for the music was done. And
exactly.
You weren't letting your ego get in the way, because a lot of people are like, well, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do all of it. I can do all of it. Therefore, I will do all of it. You were still detached enough to say, okay, what do I think will serve these songs best? So. Well,
exactly. Otherwise, I'd have played drums on the record myself. I mean, I've got a custom DW kit here that's my own. That I wouldn't call myself a drummer. I'm a guitarist that can play drums. I wanted an actual drummer on my record, not just a guitarist that can play drums. There's a big difference.
Sure.
There's a certain sound I wanted, a certain kind of feel I wanted. And that's why Vinny plays 8 out of the 10 tracks. And the only reason why he's not playing the other 2 tracks is because those needed more of a proggy type drummer. And that's Glenn's wheelhouse. So I have Glenn solo on those 2 tracks for that reason. So, I cast the guests on my record according to who fit which song best in my head. When I heard the end production in my head, which is the only place where it lived, whose delivery serves that? And that's exactly how I cast the record. I know a lot more people than this, and could have had lots more people on the record. I could have had half of the amount of people, and I could have played every instrument myself. But it was definitely about what is going to make each song exactly how I hear it in my head.
That's awesome.
Who has to play this to accomplish that? And that's exactly how I approached the record.
Yeah, what a great way to do it. That's fantastic. Now, I want to touch on one thing before we wrap up. I was impressed with, I asked you a question last year we interviewed, and if I remember correctly, you sing your guitar melodies out before you put them down. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. I really like that approach. That's pretty cool. And what a great way to maybe break out of boxes.
Definitely. And it's funny you should say that, because, people have asked me, like, why instrumentals? Mm-hmm. Why are you doing instrumentals? So there's 6 vocal tracks on the record and 4 instrumentals.
Right.
And my answer is, why not? I'm always singing. Whether it's with my voice or my hands, it is still singing. So all of my instrumental melodies, you can still sing with your mouth.
Right.
It's exactly what I would still be saying if it were a vocal melody.
Right.
Only on a guitar.
Exactly.
And that's why you don't have a lot of gratuitous, what people like to call shred crap in there, because I'm not interested in impressing anybody with my guitar prowess. It is what it is. And don't compare me to anybody. I'm myself.
Right.
Love it or hate it. I'm not auditioning to be on the top 10 guitarist list for somebody's opinionated poll.
Right.
I'm writing music. So yeah, all of my melodies sing, and yeah, you've got to be able to sing them with your face before you can put it on the instrument, for me personally.
No, I think that's great advice. Well, so you are tentatively planning on releasing another album at some point, or another project. That's good news.
I'm working on the demos for the second album right now. I have all the songs written. So
awesome.
Now I'm just waiting. I'm doing the same thing I did with Evil Enough, and I'm recording all the demos here. I'm playing all the instruments, doing the same thing all over again. And once I have those demos ready, then I'm going to decide how I want to proceed, because now, having done what I've done, I have more options in terms of how I proceed, whether it's with my own label or somebody else's, depending on the kinds of situations that are offered to me. So again, I have to be very careful about how I want to go forward.
Sure. Well, it sounds like you've got a solid plan, though. Well, that's awesome. Before we go, I want to make sure everybody knows where they can, access your site, your social media, where they can buy Evil Enough, that kind of thing. What do people need to know to get updates on the latest?
Okay, so you can go to taralynch.com, and on Facebook you can go to the Tara Lynch official page. YouTube is Tara Lynch official. Instagram, Tara Lynch official. On Twitter, it's Tara Lynch rocks. And as far as where you can purchase the record, U.S. and world, it's available worldwide at this point. You can get it anywhere online at all of the online stores. And then also, if you're in the UK, for example, UK or Ireland, and you don't want to have to pay the shipping fee to have it imported from America, I have a distributor there, Cargo Records UK.
Okay.
And you can go to the Cargo Records Direct website, and you can purchase the record there. Also, Amazon UK, as well as the regular Amazon, Google Play, CD Baby, and my website.
Perfect.
So is worldwide as well. So it's everywhere.
Perfect. Well, it's been such an honor talking to you, and I really enjoyed the album, and it's good to know that you have more plans in the future because it's good stuff. So I appreciate you taking time to talk with us and shed some light on your process.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thanks so much. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.